Good morning, Million Cuppers. How are you guys doing this morning? We got a full packed schedule today, so we're going to get right on it. I hope you noticed some of the beautiful artwork out in the lobby this morning. That is the work of Medora Fry, who I'm going to bring up here just for a minute. She's also going to continue working on the piece that she's working on in the corner up there. So be sure to check that out on your way out. So let's start with Medora.
Hey everybody. So like Evan said, my name is Medora Fry. I'm a local abstract artist, and I do have an event coming up this Saturday. So has anyone heard of Makewell? Yeah, okay. So I'm teaching a workshop at 1:30 at Co-Studio. There are still 5 tickets left, so as of last night. So I'm pretty sure. So if you would like to come paint with me, that would be awesome. I'm teaching a workshop called Healing with Painting. So just kind of about art, using abstract art just as a way for healing in your own life. So Saturday, 1:30, Co-Studio. Thanks.
All right. So if you have the 1 Million Cups app, please check in so we know you're here. See a lot of people reaching their phones. That's great. If you don't have the app, please get it and check in. And a big shout out and thank you to our sponsors. We're so grateful for these folks that have enough appreciation for what it is we do here every week that they're willing to throw down some money and help us keep this thing going and buy us coffee and get this venue and really make this event go. So be sure to thank them whenever you see them. So any new people today? Okay, a couple. I'm actually keeping track. I have a spreadsheet for this. So so this is a free weekly program where we put an entrepreneur up on this stage and we give them an opportunity to tell us their story. And we also have some give and take at the end where we can maybe help support that entrepreneur in their journey. And if you're like me, you walk away with something too. It seems like I never attend one of these that I don't walk away smarter and better than when I came in. So the whole concept, the Kauffman Foundation started this, and it's based on the question, can we change the face of our entrepreneurial community over 1 million cups of coffee? And we have answered that question, and the answer is yes. And we've been doing it for over 5 years, and it couldn't be better, and we couldn't do it without, obviously, everybody that comes is a huge part of that. So remember, we're going to do Q&A. We've got hashtag 1MCND if you've got questions and are feeling a little shy this morning. I encourage you not to be shy, but if you are, you ask your questions that way. So I'm excited to announce our speaker this morning. Bob Thornberg comes to us from Walhalla, North Dakota. Anybody knows where Walhalla is? All right, a few. I know it very well. My wife is from Walhalla. I was there. Actually, we went there. Oh, let's do some community announcements. Thank you. Okay. Let's do community announcements, and then we're going to bring Bob up. So anybody with a community announcement, now is the time to come up and tell us about that.
Good morning, 1 Million Cups! My name is Joel. I'm a project manager at Threefold Creative and Video Production down on West Main, just a handful of blocks over that way. We're doing an open casting call for the community tomorrow, all day, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you don't know what a casting call is, come on down. If you know what a casting call is, come on down. If you don't have any acting experience, come on down. So we're just looking for people who are interested to be on camera. We'll just take 5 minutes to capture you, get to know you a little bit, and we use these people every month. I just emailed a lady from our casting call last year this morning. So we love to get to know you and hopefully use you in upcoming spots. And if we use you, we do pay you. So thank you.
Thanks.
There it is. Good morning. So At 1 million cups every week, inevitably, it seems like more and more we're having to kick people out at 10:30 because people are hanging out and talking afterwards, which is awesome. We don't like kicking people out, but we have jobs to get to and things to do and adulting to do. So with that in mind, to give more opportunity for people to network and connect a little bit, the organizing team has planned for startups and stand-ups May 2nd in the Wells Fargo building, 400 East Broadway. So there'll be some wine tasting, there'll be some hors d'oeuvres, there'll be speakers from the last 6 months at 1 Million Cups tabling there that you can connect with. You'll get to connect with this awesome crowd in here. So yeah, you should be there. May 2nd, 5:15, Wells Fargo building. Put it on your calendar. Thank you.
Going once? Okay. Now we can talk about Walhalla. Sorry. So my wife and I were in Walhalla last summer for the grand opening of their new mountain bike terrain park up there. And if you've been up there, they have some serious terrain up there. There's a ski area. And so we wanted to be the first on the trail after they cut the ribbon. After a couple hours on the new and incredible trails, we came back to the lodge, and here was a table set up with this company called Food First, and they were giving away some bars, and we were ravenous, and the bars were awesome, and we met Bob and talked to him for quite some time, and it seems like our paths have continued to cross ever since. He was a winner at DisruptWell's Disruptive Innovation Challenge last fall, and he is with us here today to tell us a little bit about Food First and how he got here. Give him a big Bismarck welcome.
All I have to do is push, and then they change. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate this. 20 years ago, I set out a goal to be kicked out of the Winkler, Manitoba swimming pool for doing a handstand dive off the high board on my 70th year. It was considered too dangerous. And when I had been told that in my 50s, I was kind of proud of that. And when I was told that in my 60s, I continued to be. So I started plotting for my 70s. Well, last summer, I turned 70, and my kids, and now grandkids, kept me to the promise. Oops. Just push the... Oh. Okay. So, when I was 70, I decided I would get kicked out of the Winkler pool for doing that. And to be ready for that, I had to stay reasonably fit over the years and to stay healthy. But staying healthy, I thought, for me was kind of a natural, since my business revolved around fermented supplements to keep cattle healthy. And we had expanded our supplement business into horses to keep horses healthy. And then horse owners who had seen a dramatic improvement in their horses decided they wanted some of that for themselves, for people. Well, as a feed company, we kind of resisted that because we're a feed company. And we thought that's a bit of a stretch. But it turned out that it was kind of the exact best reason to do it. For years, we'd been pioneering a new approach with animals, feeding their beneficial bacteria better, their probiotics. And we did it with an emphasis on prebiotic fibers. And in fact, the term prebiotic hadn't even been coined yet when we started on this. So it's still a very new concept, but it's working in animals and it's working for us. We're animals after all. So you might say we kind of got dragged into the food business, but we're really glad that we did. So who are we in this new food enterprise, and what do we do? Well, Food First is our name, and we focus first on food to maintain good health. And we feature prebiotic fiber that's been fermented, and we ferment wheat, oats, barley, and flax to make a product that's called probiotin. And we feed the beneficial probiotic organisms that are already in your digestive tract, your gut, your microbiome. The human microbiome, it's something we're just learning about. And for one, 70% of your immune function is in your microbiome. So if you pay better attention to feeding those beneficial bacteria that are already there, it gives you a lot better shot at staying healthy. So in a way, it's really quite simple. We need more fiber. And eating more fiber can have a profound effect. And I've coined the term often, the profound is profoundly simple. It's, we just need more fiber in the diet. And the Western diet, of course, has too little fiber. We're paying a heavy price for that. Instead of 28 grams of fiber per day, we're getting averaging about 18. And so what we want to do is fill that gap. And our primary product is probiotin. That's where we started, and we've been putting this in animal feeds for a number of years. It's 33% fiber, and much of that fiber is a soluble prebiotic fiber, which feeds those beneficial critters in your microbiome. And probiotin, however, can be a little challenging for people unless you're baking it into bread or putting it into a smoothie. And so we developed the special health bar that would be a more convenient way to deliver the probiotin, and we call that the microbiome bar. And that's a pretty unusual name, but it's really catching up with what's going on in the health industry. So that's what brings us here today. That's kind of gotten us to this point. We've completed the 4 products together, so we're getting ready to go into the market. And as we do, they're asking what are the problems we seek to solve, what are the markets we want to target, and what's our growth plan over the next 18 months. And we're solving the problem caused by inadequate fiber in the diet, especially where immune function is diminished by the lack of those prebiotic fibers. And our market is pretty big. 1/3 of people have either periodic or chronic digestive problems. And this addresses many of those. And the other third, there's another third of Americans who just want to prevent those problems. And this is part of what we feel is our strongest marketplace. And our immediate goal now is to have a successful test within the CVS pharmacies. They have 100 stores that they're going to be allocating to us to get started, and then be operationally prepared to be included in their 9,800 stores. That's a little bit daunting, as we're a little bitty operation, kind of fledgling, starting in Walhalla, North Dakota, and we've got an opportunity to maybe be nationwide and one of the biggest companies in the US. So being ready for that is our challenge over the next 18 months. And this is the format that we've chosen. You saw the bars as 2 bars in a package in a box. And as soon as we did that, CVS said, how about 1 bar in a package in a pouch? And we said, we can do that. And so this is the reconfiguration, and they're going to select just one of the flavors and then have a variety pack. So they'll go with the chocolate, cherry, walnut, and then the variety pack with all 4 of the flavors represented. So anyway, what's all this got to do with that diving picture at the beginning of the talk? Well, it was part of a significant goal setting that I had done those 20 years ago, and we've set a new goal with this project. And that goal is to establish an aquatic center in Walhalla, similar to that in Winkler, Manitoba. And then I can be assured of not getting kicked out of Walhalla. But I'd like to do it while I'm still able, get it finished by the time I'm able to still do a handstand dive off that new high board. So anyway, we're committing a percentage of our sales toward that, and we want to encourage others to participate as well. And we got to thinking about this aquatic center. It's a kind of a new concept, and how big should that main pool be? And we thought, how about 1 million cups? And it works out. I had to change the dimension a little bit, but we haven't done anything as far as the dimension. But if we have a swimming area and then a diving area, the average depth in the swimming area 3.5 feet, and the average depth in the diving area, you can see got a little convoluted, but it comes out to exactly 1 million cups. And we thought that was kind of interesting. So who knows what it might stimulate, and that was the thing that we're so appreciative now, is the chance to come and talk about what we're doing and see what kind of things that stimulates and what kinds of interests people have in it. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and visit, and if there's questions, I don't know if you want to handle them from here.
Yeah, well, let's give it up for Robert. Let's have a seat, and we'll
Okay.
see if there's some questions. Tyler's going to be running the mic, and again, hashtag 1MCND if you've got a question to submit that way. And I kind of want to start it off with your company name, Food First. I've got a little inside information there,
Yeah.
but if you could talk a little bit about what's implied in that name.
Okay, yeah, we chose the term food first and implying pharma second. That if you're sick, a lot of times you need medicine, and that's fine, but if you can prevent the need for medicine by eating a healthy diet and having food as your primary medicine, if you will, that was kind of the approach that we took. And it harkens back to the feed side of our business, where we use byproducts from ethanol plants, and they've been cooked and fermented, and they're really good, and cattle, benefit from that. But it was always considered a byproduct and almost a waste product in the early days of that industry. And I always thought that feed first and alcohol should be the byproduct. And so that kind of stimulated it. And as we're drawn into the food side of things now, there was a distinct parallel. And we thought, boy, that's exactly right. Food first, pharma second.
All right, Marlo.
So you've created products for bovine and equestrian uses, and we're sitting here talking about how you're feeding us stuff made for cows. So how did you make the leap to human consumption?
Well, we made the leap, as I mentioned, reluctantly. We had our horse product line was the first product to use this probiotin. And when we were taking probiotin, we took wheat, oats, barley, and flax. So we get all the whole grain goodness, but we ferment away the starch. So we take out what's kind of a problem, the starch and sugar part of it. And you get all of the rest is concentrated. And we'd had very good results with that because we were stimulating the rumen in particular in a cow, or the cecum in a horse, and that's their microbial digestive, section. And so we'd been dealing with animals in that regard, feeding essentially their microbiome. And that was our specialization area. Well, the horse customers were seeing such a dramatic result with their horses, with, the eyes were clearer, the coats were shinier, the hoof growth was terrific, and they started eating it themselves. And I'm not kidding. And they said, you better make a product for us. And I said, well, we don't. But we literally got pulled into it because I knew you can tell somebody all you want not to do something, and if it's working for them, they'll probably still do it.
Did they have shiny coats?
They had shiny coats. Yes. And so I thought, well, we'll make it. And it was initially, we explored it just on the basis of how to prevent them from continuing to eat the horse supplement and give them an opportunity. And then I had been making it myself and baking it into bread. And my son, who had eczema pretty bad, and when he'd go away to college at NDSU, he'd come home and his eczema would be worse, and he'd eat the bread and it would clear up. And so we started making some of these immune system kinds of cause and effect to it. And then we got serious about doing a food product. And so it really was a kind of a slow evolution, a reluctant one. And then we figured out, this could be pretty good. And the food side, because in livestock, everybody's afraid of a failure. Everybody's worried if something goes wrong. It can be pretty devastating for an organization, so they're cautious and need to be. And so breaking into the food industry or feed industry was very slow and plodding, and it took us 3 years to establish a customer almost. And that's frustrating. Well, I thought, boy, I don't want to go through that again. I'm getting a little gray and, and I don't have that much time. But on the food side, there's a different orientation, and people are looking for that next big thing. They're looking for that new breakthrough that's going to help them. And so we feel like we've got a good resource. I kind of use as our de facto or motto a little bit is all of our products have been tested on animals. We say it a little quietly sometimes so that people don't get the wrong impression, but really that's what's happened, and we've found the corollary there and the understanding of that microbial population and that probiotic. There's 500 to 1,000 species of probiotics that are resident in your intestinal tract. Well, to take one or two is a plus, but you got 500 or so still that are already there. Feed them better and let them help keep you healthy better. And so it was kind of an economic orientation, and that stems from the feed side of things. You better be economical in what you do. So that's been the path, and it's kind of been a little circuitous, but
Wow.
it's working.
Question, Keenan.
Yeah, question on the CVS, kind of two parts of one, how did that CVS connection come about? And how long does that test period last, and what does that look like for you guys?
The CVS was set up. We ended up doing a show, the East Coast Natural Products Expo in Baltimore, and then we do the West Coast product in Anaheim. But we made a connection with a food broker or industry guy who dealt with a lot of companies. And he's the one that opened it up so that we could get on Amazon. So all of our products are on Amazon now. And then he was working with various other companies. And most of them were saying, well, another bar, what do we need another bar for? That's a crowded field. And we said, well, it's not a protein bar, it's not an energy bar, it's not this, it's a gut health bar. So we kind of created our own category. And then he was able to convey that message adequately to CVS, who's kind of transitioning right now from their explanation to us to be more of, instead of sick care, they want to be health care. They want to put more of an orientation in their stores toward preventive medicine and more of a healthcare emphasis. So they saw our product as fitting that dynamic, and when we're not going to be in the bar section, we'll probably be more in the medicine section almost, which is a little nervous for us. We're not a medicine, it's a food. But that's how it got started, and so they asked us, they said, can you do, instead of a 2 bars in a package, can you do 1 bar individually wrapped, and can you do it in a pouch, because they need to put it on a peg. And so once we did that, and they said they liked that, they opened it up for a 100-store test market, and that will start, and I think you asked the timetable. 6 months is a typical timetable for their test marketing, and we should be starting late May or early June on that. So we've got 6 months, and if it goes real well, they might break early out of that, but it's giving us time to start getting the reality of trying to deal with that number of stores, and so we've ordered a bigger bar maker and things like that. And we can live with it if it doesn't work. But, you know, that's the juggling point right now.
Question?
Hey, thank you very much. And I just want to say I really appreciate what you do with the Food First message and all you're trying to do to help people with their general health. My question is specifically in regards to the bar for human consumption. I'm just curious, how did you come up with the formula, particularly when it comes to the use of sweeteners, trying to find that balance point between, especially with consumers being more and more conscientious and sensitive to the amount of sugar they consume? How did you find that balance point between how much sweetener do we use to make it so people will want to come back and eat this again, but not so much that it becomes unhealthy in that regard?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because it really drills down into a core issue that we're dealing with. And for one, the first products that we had done, we used 100% honey as our sweetener, and we needed something. The probiotin is not a favorite to try to eat independently. And so we needed a way to improve that flavor. And we used 100% honey initially, and then that was going to be too difficult to work with. And so then we went with breaking that down into additional sweeteners. And one of the sweeteners is actually, it's not even a sweetener, it's inulin. It's chicory root fiber, but it has a sweetening kind of characteristic to it, and that's one of the prebiotics. It's the fructooligosaccharide, for those who are familiar with that. And so then we blended that in as part of our sweetening component, but it was consistent with our prebiotic message that fit with the probiotin side. And it still wasn't quite where we needed it to be, and brown rice sugar was one that we felt was a good option. We didn't want to use high fructose corn syrup, or we didn't want to use other kinds of sugars if we could avoid it. And so we settled on that. But the need for palatability, it better taste good, or you can talk about it all day and you won't get repeat business. And so that's been the approach that we've taken. And interestingly, the chicory root fiber as a sweetener, we were penalized with that initially, and we're actually going to end up having a lower sugar content in the next iterations without having changed a thing. It's just analytically in the food industry, they're better able to analyze for the prebiotic fibers. And prebiotic fiber, it's just a shorter chain of sugars that the body can't digest, but those microbes can. And so we were being penalized. The inulin was being viewed as a sugar, and it's really a fiber. And now the analyticals in the industry are getting up to speed with us. And so we're getting a better read. And so our fiber content's going up and our sugar content's going down, and we didn't do anything. We just knew that that was a limitation in the analytical world.
Amanda?
My question is, how are you handling production? Are you able to keep that in Walhalla, or are you having to outsource that?
Yeah, we were really not expecting to produce ourselves at all. We thought we would work with a co-packer, and we were working with one in Minneapolis, and this is early on. And then they went gluten-free and soy-free and dairy-free and went so many things free that we couldn't work with them anymore. And so we checked with a couple of others, and everybody was going so restrictive that it precluded us from having that option of being made for us. And so we said, well, we're still going to do this. And so we decided to get a smallish type of bar maker and feel our way into it. Well, now we're glad we did. It's a bigger challenge, but it gives us complete control over the process and everything. And it allowed us to really understand, especially that fiber element and things like that. And so we've been scouring every kind of auction where there's food equipment that's being sold off, and we've gotten an awful lot of things pretty reasonable so we could afford to do this ourselves and take that second step. Well, now that we have, like I mentioned, the big challenge is going to be keeping up with 9,800 stores. And we think internally in Walhalla, with what we have right now, we could get to the point where if CVS, if the stores average 2 packages per month, we can keep up with what we've got. But that gives us plenty of time because they aren't going to put it in all 9,800 to start with. And so it'll allow us to kind of get started. And then in the meantime, we're already planning for how do we keep up if they go to 3 per month or 4 per month? Because that 3 to 4 per month doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you multiply it against 10,000 stores, it's, you know, you're doubling your sales. And so it's a big deal. And so we're working with how do we deal with that? And knowing that, you know, it might not be a successful test market too. So we got to be a little bit prepared for that, but we think we're going to get it.
So is it a matter of duplicating the equipment that you've got already, doing more of the same, or bigger volume equipment? What do you?
Yeah, well, like the machine that we've got right now just does 1 bar at a time. It comes out about every 2 seconds. We're upgrading now to a machine where 3 will come out at a time, and they'll come out faster. So it more than quadruples our capacity, and we can do it in a way where the same, you know, instead of one person picking it off and putting it on a tray, we'll just feed it right onto a tray. So that we didn't increase our man hours, but we quadrupled the capacity coming out of that machine. We'll have to change some things, and that's what we can do to get to this, you know, to accommodate 2. Then we have to go to a bigger machine, yet that puts it right on the trays, and then put additional flow wrapper that does the individual wrapping. So we're kind of, you know, we feel like the center that we have in Walhalla, we feel like we're calling it our development center, but it's a production unit. And then once we get going, if it's successful, you know, we'll get more formal in a heavy-duty production setting.
Rock and Dave?
I'm kind of curious about your business model. Now, you're still in the animal feed business. By the way, I got a good saying for you: tested by animals, approved by humans. But
I like it.
how is that going to change what you're doing now in regards to still in that animal space, which I assume you still are, and now making a switch to more of the human or the probiotic formula for humans?
Yeah, well, as an organization, what we're doing is we started Food First as a separate LLC. It's completely under, you know, our main company, but as a result, we're realizing we do need a more formal separation. So we've already organized as Food First, and now the feed company, we just developed an LLC for Sweet Pro. Sweet Pro is the feed company, and then before our corporation is called Harvest Fuel. That's what we incorporated under. We do nothing with fuel anymore, but that's our name. And we were doing business as Sweet Pro Feeds. So now we're formalizing Sweet Pro Feeds as a separate entity, and we're separating the assets. And so they'll both be owned fully by Harvest Fuel. And so from an operational standpoint, that's part of the process we're going through right now.
I had one additional question. What's your marketing approach going to be? You know, obviously getting into CVS is important, but how do you really get that message out to the consumers about this is really good for you? I mean, are you going to be doing some TV or radio, or what's your marketing approach?
Well, the marketing approach right now was we wanted to be sure we got distribution. We got kind of to a break-even type of setting. And that as we're going forward, we feel like we're going to benefit from an awful lot of media awareness growing in the prebiotic area. that probiotics are understood, and you're hearing more and more about probiotics, and prebiotics are just starting to be understood. And so there's going to be a lot of media attention given to that. And as there's attention given to that, they go, well, who's doing something in that, and what are they doing? And we become a natural target for them to say, oh, well, here's what's going on in prebiotics, and here's this microbiome bar. So we expect to benefit from quite a bit of media exposure initially. Then going forward, you know, the resources are going to dictate what we can do on a marketing standpoint, but one of the things that we had explored, and we have not talked to this person about it yet, but being North Dakota, and Bismarck High had a pretty significant high school quarterback a few years ago that went to NDSU and did all right. Was it Century? Okay. Did pretty well at NDSU and is now in the NFL. And so Carson Wentz is somebody that we'll be approaching if we get successful in, you know, getting enough marketing, you know, enough distribution going. And we feel like that North Dakota tie is pretty unique. And that's just, this is pretty raw concept. We may get no interest, but we kind of think we might.
I think the first to the party thing, though, is a good approach in terms of media coming to you when they're kind of hungry, if you will, for information about this. Yes.
Hi, I've got a couple questions. First, I've got a horse at home who loves your Equilix product, so thank you for that. Is there ever an option to recycle those blue totes, because we have so many?
Oh, boy.
Anyway, think about that. We can talk later.
Yeah.
But question on Facebook says, where in Bismarck are your products sold?
And we have a distributor out of out of Montana who handles the marketing in Bismarck, and I don't know for sure.
We're going to the food co-op right after this and make some introductions, so maybe.
Okay.
Oh, the food
So
side.
the bar is not.
Oh, the bars, yeah. And really, nobody.
Okay.
We're just getting started. So Amazon would be the immediate place anybody can go to, and then CVS, but we don't know if we'll be part of the test market here.
Okay.
But other than that, there's nobody. We've got four stores that we've started with in the Walhalla drugstore, the Langdon drugstore, the Park River drugstore.
All the hot spots.
Yeah. And they're selling the daylights out of it. They really are. So it's encouraging to us, but we've been kind of wanting to get the whole program together first and then get to the big expos and get some of that national orientation started. But we need somebody in Bismarck.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question kind of from the consumer standpoint and feeding off your dietary knowledge and gut health. What is the consumption rate that you're looking for in consumers? Is it a bar every other day or a bar every day? And kind of just to piggyback off of that, which could be a topic in itself, is how do you come up with pricing? And yeah, just kind of from the consumer and being in that protein world and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The big thing that we found that was the most unique part of our product was the fiber component, and especially the prebiotic fiber, because there's a bulk fiber that you need just to be, carrying things through your digestive tract and keep the passage smooth. And then the prebiotic fibers that are feeding those microorganisms that are already there. And so the soluble and insoluble fractions of the fiber were a key part of it. Total dietary fiber, we will be at 7 grams in the bars, and the peanutty cranberry will actually be 9 grams. And so what we're saying is if the average is 18 grams that the consumer is eating, and they should be getting 28. Now guys should be getting more than that because they're bigger typically, and so we're looking for, what's that average. But we see that if we can take it from where the average is and where we're inadequate as a consumer and just get toward, the average or what the daily recommended amount. That's our goal, is to fill that gap. And so that's what drove the intake amounts and that type of thing. And so with the 80-gram bar, two 40-gram pieces, you're getting those 7. You're getting 7 grams in the single pack right now. So and that's because we can start claiming the inulin as a fiber. So that's what drove how much we want to eat. A person could eat more than that. That's no problem. It's just an economic issue. But and then what was the other pricing you were asking about? Pricing, we knew that we were coming in with what should be a high-end, almost a medical kind of treatment. But we don't have to be priced in that area because we're basic in the production of our prebiotics. We've been doing that for a number of years. And so the probiotin that we produce that gives us a blend of 4 different prebiotics, that's the expensive part, but we do that ourselves. So we've made a choice to market geared right at, like the Kind bars are kind of a market leader right now. Between Cliff and Kind, there's a bit of a war going on. And but the Kind bars are 40 grams. They look a lot bigger, but they're 40 grams, and they typically sell for about $2, $1.89 to $2, and then you get 2 for $3. So $1.50 a bar is what the Kind bars basically boil down to. And so we feel like we can be at least at that $1.50 per 40 grams, and that's what CVS is wanting to be. They feel like, and we're encouraging them to be higher than that, at least to start, because it's way better. You've got a lot better nutritional profile in it. But if they have to compete head-to-head against the 40-gram Kind bar, they can. So that's what we geared our pricing toward.
I'm curious where you get your organic ingredients, and is there an advantage in that regard being in rural North Dakota?
Well, for the probiotin side, we do all of the wheat, oats, barley, and flax as organic, and that's sourced out of Wisconsin, Fountain City, Wisconsin. But most of the wheat actually comes from western North Dakota. And so they're bringing the wheat in, they mill it, and so we're buying the bran and the wheat from Great River Milling in Wisconsin. And so that's where we've gone. We don't have an organic certified facility because we haven't gone that far yet, but we've taken the approach of buying everything we can as organic. And so all of what goes into probiotin is organic grain. And then wherever we can on the ingredients that go into the microbiome bar, we're also going organic. But some of that we just don't have an option on.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Robert. Just a thought, just a question. If you get Carson Wentz, would be great. But I think people like to hear about health things from talking animals. And so like a horse, get him to ride a horse, get him to try and eat horse food or something, and like there's something going on there, I think that could be really helpful. A horse mascot, a cow mascot. For real, people don't want to learn about stuff, but they would learn about it from a talking, sassy animal. That's not...
Well, and that can help our
question.
feed side.
Yeah, just comment.
That's pretty good.
That is cool. I've had a chance to see Bob's facility, and one of the neat, I guess I love the story, where you make your probiotin and what that facility used to be and how you've been able to repurpose a place where you used to work. And
The big plant.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
Okay, yeah, the plant that Evan's talking about, it was owned by ADM, and it was a wheat gluten plant at one point, and they were processing wheat and washing the protein out of the wheat. And gluten is, it's very elastic, and that's how it's used in a lot of baked goods, is to improve the elasticity in the baking process and things like that. Well, their business they didn't do well with the gluten side of their business, but they put it in Walhalla because then when they washed the protein out of the wheat flour, the starch had a place to go. It went over to the alcohol plant, and the alcohol plant fermented it and made alcohol. Well, that
Ethanol.
yeah, the ethanol. And that's what brought me up to the area is I was manager of that ethanol plant years ago before ADM was involved. So that's how I ended up in the area. I was managing the ethanol plant, and then it ran into lots of difficulties from the early years, in large part because they were not adequately dealing with their byproducts or their co-products. So that's what set me on the course of, commercializing better value out of their co-products, and so I set up my own company to do that. Well, now it's cycling all the way back around where ADM got out of that alcohol plant business. They had shut down the gluten plant, and when they did, they just stripped out all the first floor equipment because they turned it into a warehouse. Well, there's 6 stories high of tremendous amount of equipment and drying equipment where it has to be very, very delicate temperature because gluten, it needs that elasticity, so you have to dry it real carefully, and it's food grade. All of that was sitting there. I said, I can put that to use because probiotin, we're real careful in how we dry it because we want to retain the enzymatic content and the digestive benefits. And so we dry it low temperature and slow. So that 5 stories worth of equipment sitting there, we thought we could repurpose, and that's what we've done. So now we're getting into the feed side of dried probiotin on a big scale.
What's so cool about that? It's a facility that otherwise would have been torn down at great expense, and instead it's building cool feed products now. Question back.
This isn't so much a question, but more of a plug for you, because I've done significant research in the areas of fiber also. I work in the medical industry, and primarily with the geriatric side, where they're overly heavily medicated. And just by some of the studies with World Health Organization talks about if you can get as high as 40 grams of fiber and you get your average daily allowance in water, you can reduce a significant amount of things, clearing out all the sludge within the body. And we've working on the home healthcare side, where we can work one-on-one with a lot more people. It has been highly successful at reducing a lot of the IBS medications.
Yes.
And it's huge. We've been doing it for quite a while, so I hope your product really goes well.
Well, thank you for that, and that's the message. It's pretty simple, just more fiber, but it's hard to do because so much has been stripped out of the Western diet, and we need to put it back in.
Robert, thanks for presenting today. I'm inspired as I hear you talk about your business, but also about your personal goals. I know you shared that high dive picture, and that's significant to you. Can you maybe share some wisdom about how your personal goals have impacted your business goals, or vice versa?
Well, the personal goal on the business side was survive. in the early days, it's a little bit of a challenge starting a business, and I was glad that I didn't know how challenging it would be because I might have been reluctant to do it. But am I ever glad that I didn't know? But my theory was just you'll learn it, you'll figure it out, just go get started at it. And so we did that, and I'd heard that from other people, and boy, I would reinforce it because you'll learn in the best possible way. So for me, the goals that I had were to improve. They were kind of macro scale in many respects, but it was to turn the ethanol industry upside down, that ethanol should be the byproduct. The feed is tremendous, and it was being underutilized, and it was being wasted in many cases in the early days, and it was just a crime because it was the best part of the feed. And so we felt like, let's put it in a form that addresses that customer. And they're in the business of raising cattle or horses or, elk and goats and, any number of things. But they were being treated by the ethanol industry as a sewer in a way. Here's a way to get rid of this byproduct that we have, let them eat it and get rid of it, and they didn't get it in the proper form. So part of the macro scale of putting it in a form for that customer was what drove an awful lot. And my own individual thing, the aquatic center thing has been kind of interesting, but to me, I've just been real intrigued by that and set a personal goal years ago and getting kicked out of the pool is an exaggeration. They warn you gently, and then the male lifeguards always say, but that was pretty cool. but you can't do it. So that was part of what drove a personal goal.
I was intrigued by your goal to fund and help fund a new aquatic center. I know my wife grew up at the now very aging pool in Walhalla, and I just know what a huge part that
tremendous.
played in her early life, and
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned Cliff and Kind as kind of being these brands that are out there doing the bars. It sounds like they're not oriented to a product that adds fiber to your diet, if that's accurate. But what are you worried that if this thing takes off, that they're going to come up with a product that's going to, potentially target that same niche? And what is your plan for if and when these bigger companies decide, hey, we want to make a bar that adds fiber to people's diets, because turns out that's a pretty good idea?
Well, we have thought about those things. But in a way, I don't worry about them, because if they're going to add fiber and they're going to add a prebiotic fiber, I won't mind selling them probiotin to put into it. The fact of the matter is the microbiome bar wasn't for us to get into the bar business. It was to demonstrate probiotin as an ingredient in something that helps achieve that goal. And so we figured, well, let's make sure that we do this. And if we can make a buck at it, let's do that as well, because that's the best example that we can give. And so if Kind decided they wanted to put probiotin in the microbiome bar, then that new equipment that we've got, we'll be shifting over to food grade.
Yeah.
And well, I'd love to put I would love to put more fiber in everybody's diet, no matter whose bar it came in.
Well, we're running short of time. I know you recently just did a Kickstarter campaign to launch a new flavor of the bar. In a minute or less, can you tell us about that experience? I think that's something a lot of people often wonder about, is that Kickstarter process.
Okay. Now, Kickstarter was a new term for me. That my neighbor had told me about it, and it's a crowdfunding type of, everybody here probably is well aware of it. Well, we decided to do that, and we just arbitrarily set a goal. Well, not so arbitrarily. We set a goal at $7,500. And my daughter in Oregon was kind of spearheading that side of things for us, and she really helped a lot, because she explained, I thought, well, you just put it out there and all these people that are exposed to Kickstarter will discover you and it'll go real fast and real easy. She said, no, you need to really cultivate that first group that's aware of it, and it's a friends and family thing initially, and then it can maybe catch on, depending on how unique it is. So she argued, to have a lower goal, and we set that at 7,500. And we did it, the thrust was help us introduce the Saskatoon berry to the U.S. And that was our final flavor, was the Saskatoon berry bar. And so that was kind of the thrust, and it completed our 4-bar flavoring. So we launched it, and we were nervous about it, and I bought more than I normally would. Myself and my kids all did. And you did, and thank you for that. And so a number of people did, and then it started building a momentum. And so we got through and we hit our 7,500 and I think went to about 8,000. So we chose right, but based on my daughter's counsel that don't go too big, because I thought, well, everybody will love this. And so that was our experience with 7,500, and it worked out.
Well, congratulations. Thank you for making the trip from Walhalla. We always like to ask the same final question, and Tyler's going to ask that.
Yeah, real quick, Bob, can you back up the slideshow to that diving board picture one time?
Oh.
I feel like we didn't really recognize this enough. 70 years old, and are we able to back that up, Jay Morgan?
Okay.
Picture. That's incredible. Like if I'm giving a presentation and I'm 70 and I'm doing that, that would be my entire presentation. I just did that. That's impressive. So that's good work. Good work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so last question we always like to ask is how can our 1 Million Cups community support you in moving probiotin and the microbiome bar forward?
Well, for one, you know, as a customer, it's going to do you good. So we're unabashed in that. We'd like everybody to become a customer. And as you do, you'll know that it's not just helping you, but it's gearing towards some things that we think can be helpful for a small community. And as I was thinking about it, my son-in-law said, well, how big should the pool be? Why don't you make it 1 million cups? And I thought, well, that's kind of a crazy idea. But if 1 million cups catches fire with this concept and supports it, boy, what a way to leverage that awareness and everything. And so I thought, I think it would be great to have the pool literally be 1 million cups, and that the Million Cups organization, helped that happen.
I think we can help out with that, can't we? Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Give it up for Bob. As always, thank you so much for being here. Thanks to the tech crew upstairs. They always do a great job. Be sure to join us next week. We've got Dave Borlaug and Cody Miller from the Capitol Gallery to tell us about their journey and also share some pretty exciting news. So we'll see you then. Kill it this week.